I would like to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Timothy Akers. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Research, Innovation, and Advocacy at Morgan State University. I'm also a professor of public health. In addition, I would like to share with you that I serve also as the co-founder and the principal investigator to a National Science Foundation project that we created that was called the National Quantum Literacy Network. We have been building this area around quantum literacy, and that's an area that we're hoping to introduce more around the nation. I would like to thank everyone for taking the time over the past 2 days to participate in the innovations in agriculture and energy for opportunity zones. This was an extraordinary 2 days of information being shared across the community of HBCUs, historically Black colleges, universities, minority business enterprises, industry, and academia broadly, including government. We are at a point in our life and nation to where we must come together as a people, as a society, as a culture, as Americans. We are also at a point to where we need to think about innovations. We're at a point where we need to think about where innovations impact agriculture. We need to be at a point where innovations address energy usage. We need to be at a point where innovation affects and addresses each of us as a people, Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, all groups that make up the nation. We're at a point, to reiterate and sound redundant, to where opportunity zones, hub zones, these areas where we try to provide opportunities to historically underrepresented groups, or an area that our team and us address and call hyper disparities in these areas. Myself, my name, for those that don't know me, I am Dr. Timothy Akers. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Research, Innovation, and Advocacy at Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm also a professor of public health. Our team that I work with around the country bring all the different types of experiences, from business to agriculture to STEM education, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. We come together in the physical sciences, the life sciences. We come together in public health. We bring a rather extreme plethora of different disciplines to address the needs of the nation. Opportunity zones, hub zones, these regions are vital to national security, we consider. I right now represent Tim Akers speaking. I don't represent or speak for any one group per se, because each and all groups that we try to bring into these areas of critical importance have their own voice. But I can speak to a number of areas when we talk about disparities and health disparities, scientific disparities. We talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. What does all that mean in the areas of agriculture, in the areas of energy? Let me back up. Over the past 2 days, the opportunities and the extraordinary information that had been shared scientifically allows us to look at where we can come together as a nation. Specifically, when we look at the areas of predictive analytics, we look at the areas of quantum literacy, we look at the areas of agricultural informatics, we look at the areas of energy. We bring all this together to begin thinking about how can we as a nation begin working together. Well, let's back up a little bit. Myself, I'm a former senior scientist, senior behavioral scientist at the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, working with historically Black colleges and universities, minority business enterprises, minority serving institutions, and other critical groups is pivotal when we think about working together and forming coalitions, consortiums, and trying to partner with one another. We oftentimes see ourselves operating in silos. Rarely do we ever really come together to form consortia, gatherings that bring together the genius of the faculty, of the students, of the business leaders. Rarely do we ever think about trying to bring together this combined eclectic expertise to a focus on the disparities that the nation the world often sees. I think about some of the more innovative minds out there, such as Elon Musk, who comes together and recognizes that energy, cars, electric vehicles, space, SpaceX, those types of companies and entities are pivotal and critical to seeing the future. Tesla, as an example, using the electric car industry that brings together innovations from engineering to science to material sciences. Think about, for example, the areas of NASA that focuses on space, but we also have environmental issues that focus on agriculture. NASA's expertise and the satellites that are out there looking at the agricultural, the drying of the soils. We look at the different contaminants that are affecting the waterways, the environment. We begin looking at this, but how do we look at it from an innovative, extreme point of view? We call what we call sometimes extreme innovations. These ideas are getting our thinking outside the box. So over the past 2 days, we've listened to a number of speakers speak from minority business enterprises that talked about the importance of opportunity zones and hub zones in their areas. They talked about the importance of energy and how do you look at right now the growth of the solar cells and the energy densities that allow for longer battery usage and longer power to heat and cool our homes. What we've seen also are talks that are focused on the areas of predictive analytics, using artificial intelligence and machine learning to bring about innovative ideas that we were never able to do this. We need as a nation to see about kind of what we consider, what I and my colleagues often consider, let's explode our thinking into an area that is dynamic, but it also is inclusive. It brings together some of the most innovative ideas and minds that have ever thought about creating opportunities to address regions throughout the world, to address agricultural issues, food issues. Think about regions throughout the world where the soil is so dry to where you cannot grow crops on it. The soil and sometimes may be so moist and so wet to where it drowns and rots the crops. Think about environments and technologies that could kind of converge innovation. We need to create kind of a new enterprise, if you will, an enterprise of thinking. Give you an example. We have a whole team that began building this area of quantum literacy, and we formed what was called the National Quantum Literacy Network, and bringing together historically underrepresented groups, historical Black colleges, universities, minority business enterprises, converging around addressing quantum literacy because of the lack of diversity, the lack of equity, the lack of inclusion. So we have all of this richness in this areas of enterprise that exist out there. The question becomes, how do we pull it all together through contracts, through grants, through cooperative agreements, through interagency agreements, through interactive or transactional opportunities, through other methods that allow us as a nation to begin figuring out how to fund these opportunities? How do we see about looking at forming partnerships that have never been formed before? As I think about the past 2 days, as a scientist, as a researcher, as an educator, and as someone who sees the importance of the next generation, from civil rights to civil liberties to technologies that can kind of help ensure all of that. To me, it's exciting and it's dynamic, it's challenging. There's an old saying that has existed once. Actually, in some ways, I can't recall where this comes from or if I created it myself. If everybody looks like me, thinks like me, talks like me, acts like me, and is trained like me, why do you need me? So as we begin thinking about over the past 2 days at the Innovations in Agriculture, Energy for Opportunity Zones Summit, this past 2 days has been shall we say, a clarion call, a wake-up call for many to recognize the importance of pulling together the diversity and richness of our thinking, pulling together our best ideas, be willing to step out the box. Now, here's a very important piece, ladies and gentlemen, is being able to fail, feel comfortable in our failures. When we try an idea and if it doesn't work the first time, then we move on. Think about companies and organizations such as SpaceX. They had a number of failures, if you want to call them that. I would call them as opportunities. Those, when the rockets blew up on the landing pad or others, those were lessons learned. You learned what not to do next time. They were quite valuable. So from those quote, end quote, failures, we began seeing opportunities. So it was kind of like a balance. Is it a failure or is it an opportunity? I would dare say, when we look at minority business enterprises, we look at historically Black college universities, we look at traditional white institutions, we look at traditional business opportunities. How do we come together as a nation and as a world to kind of begin working together more cooperatively, finding opportunities within regions that allow us to build the strengths as a team? Well, please allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to make some concluding remarks. As I think about the next few weeks when the IAEOZ comes together again, I think about what will be some really important pivotal takeaways. It comes down to what I believe as an academic, as an educator, as an innovator myself. It comes down to students. It comes down to what are we going to leave and recognize the students in the context of a legacy, in the context of opportunities. As someone who attended community colleges, as someone who's attended VOTEC myself, I believe the importance of getting students recognized, transitioning from community colleges, VOTEC colleges and schools, to recognizing the importance of higher education and how they come together. We, for example, have collaborations with many community colleges and VOTEC schools all over the country with other universities. But the students are our focus. They're the reasons why many of us do what we do, because they are the future. The students will become the caregivers of us. The students will become the clinicians of us. The students will become the developers and builders for us in the future. So as we begin thinking about where does innovations in agriculture, energy, and opportunity zones exist, they exist within the hearts and minds of the students of the future. We look right now, if we continue to plan only 1, 2 to 3, 4, or 5 years down the road, it's going to have a national security impact on us, which is not going to be good. We as a nation must plan to get away from the divisiveness and come together as a people and look down the road generationally that will keep America and our value systems in the forefront. We need to look at our nation in the context of higher education, getting Congress and our congressional representatives see the importance of how do you fund and support historically Black colleges and universities, minority serving institutions? How do we create policies and procedures to address minority business enterprises? How do we address the nation's importance around supply chain? How do we as a people, as a nation, as the light on the hill, become a focal point for others around the world to continue to see us as leaders in the space of science and education and technology and mathematics, in this area of quantum literacy? How do we create this environment where students can feel comfortable about taking risk? We're at a point, ladies and gentlemen, to where we need to also encourage students to become more entrepreneurial, to be willing to take risk. The nation is in need of a domestic supply chain. That supply chain can range from PPTs and PPEs, personal protective equipment, personal protective technologies. That can range from this evolution around the quantum supply chain with the new industries around quantum enterprises that are growing all over the nation. This new enterprise that begins looking at the importance of where minority business enterprises can be involved in the manufacturing of technologies. where we can get historically Black college universities collaborating and partnering and receiving funding and support by industry and government, how we can see the importance of innovative ideas from populations that have been historically underrepresented and excluded. We need to bring in that level of genius, ladies and gentlemen, into this process. Over the next couple of weeks, we will see other comments that are coming from the Innovations in Agricultural Energy for Opportunity Zone Summit that will bring together, coalesce all of these ideas. We have, over the past couple of years, done everything we can to kind of push the areas around innovations in agriculture and energy. I would like to share and close with these last comments. As we think into the future, we need to ask ourselves, where at what point can we establish strong collaborations that are sustainable over time? Well, my recommendation and input would focus and advocate for the importance of recognizing minority business enterprises and enterprises that focus on extreme innovations. We're a nation now that we need to continue to push the genius that we have all been blessed with, and that's focusing on innovations that can help in our food supply chain, to help in food security, food safety, that focus on the importance of taking data to help us to better understand how to protect the health of our fellow citizens and the world globally. While we focus on our domestic issues and concerns, that's important, as I think all nations should. We also have to think that we exist in a global community also. So all of our input, all of our innovations should have a global impact, while at the same time recognizing the importance of our own domestic needs. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for allowing me to speak and provide some of these concluding comments on behalf of the Innovations in Agriculture and Energy for Opportunity Zone Summit. Thank you, and our thoughts and prayers will be with each and every one of you.